Hello, and welcome to another of today's episodes of Saddest Night Out. My name is Roy, and I am the host of this daily podcast, which is primarily about music and creative culture in London. And on the second of today's episodes, I am speaking to Warren Meneely. Warren is another fairly recent addition to the open mic roster, but he goes back a little further than Theo does, and he primarily plays our Friday open mic nights. And he is a fantastic cover artist. He knows, he has a massive library of cover songs that he knows. And he's also played open mic jam nights where he'll join other musicians. And it's actually happened at some of the Friday night ones as well, where other musicians will ask him if he knows a certain song, and he'll join them on stage to accompany them. But on this episode, we get introduced to how he started making music in the first place and the incredible story of how he came to London. So this is me talking to Warren again before we started the open mic at the King's Head in Bayswater on a Friday night. I'll catch up with you a bit more afterwards, but enjoy this chat. So, I am still in the King's Head, and I'm talking to my second guest today, who is also a newcomer to the podcast, and a bit of a regular appearance at our open mics on Fridays. Will you kindly introduce yourself for the audience?
Hi, my name's Warren Meneely. I'm a guitarist, singer, probably known in Roy's words as the Time Machine. Or the time being, we might say. The thing that I really like doing is playing classic old songs from the 80s, just purely because, and what I like about doing open mics is the live performance. I like actually just to play, and so for me, the thing is to play stuff people know, and hopefully they enjoy it.
Yeah, and you know a lot of songs that people know. So when did you first start making music?
I played guitar in bands since I was 13 years old. So my first band when I was 13, I started playing guitar when I was about 10.
And where was this?
This was in Australia. So I grew up in Australia, in a little country town inland from Brisbane.
Do you remember the first bands you saw that made you think, I want to do that?
Well, of course, in that time, probably, and believe it or not, it's not my thing now, but AC/DC were really big. Right. Because, I'm an older fella, so, they were kind of really big and kind of the Australian music scene. What is interesting is, and especially Australian music right through the 70s and the 80s, 70s and 80s, there was a real kind of pub rock circuit.
Right.
But what is interesting for Australia is that, and I mean any other, it's an English-speaking country, of course, and we have the links to Britain historically, but so British music is really popular, of course American, but then we have our own music, so you kind of, it's that thing of you growing up on kind of your own music of your own culture, as well as the same stuff that everyone else listens to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of, it doesn't matter whether you grow up in France or wherever, it's going to be exactly the same, that you have your own music and then you have the same stuff that other people listen to.
So 10 years old, you first start playing guitar. 13 years old, you joined your first band.
Joined my first band.
And that band was called
Pendulum, which actually, and now there's a famous Australian band called Pendulum in about, I don't know, maybe 2005, 2010. I can't remember when they were big. I know they even played Glastonbury.
Very electronic.
Kind of electronic band, yes,
kind of drum
exactly.
And bass. I do remember that, yeah.
I think it was about 2010. Can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But, so there you go.
So,
no relation. Nowhere near as good. And in fact, our repertoire really consisted of AC/DC, the Rolling Stones, just all kind of, classic rock songs that are pretty easy to play as well.
Now, was playing music a consistent presence in your life growing up?
Absolutely.
Were there other bands after Pendulum?
Oh, many, I played in quite a few bands. Went through all kinds of, genres. For example, punk didn't really relate to me and my life in Australia because it was just like, as much as any teenager has a kind of a bit of rebellion, but to me, like, Britain and punk and everything, that was just a complete world away that, in a way, didn't have a big relationship to my life. Okay. But what really interested me, and where I kind of, and even, in a way, some of the music I play now still evolves from, I really loved, like, The Cure, who kind of evolved more in the beginnings of if you want to call it even new romantic, like, you know, there was kind of The Cure, but then also, like, I loved this band Japan, who are much more kind of electronic, kind of in the realm of, if you want to call it new romantic or whatever. So again, that's when my interest in music probably evolved. Not only predominantly a lot of British music, but what it was music production. What I loved about, for example, 17 Seconds by The Cure, which is just an amazing record because it's so simple, but it was an era when recording techniques were all being invented and developed. Okay, you might say the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper and George Martin and whatever, that was a certain thing of multi-track recording. But we're talking the late 70s, early 80s, like Tin Drum by Japan, which is an amazing record, purely because there was the Prophet 5 synthesizer came out, and it was pretty much the whole album was recorded on a Prophet 5. And so basically it was a time when the big beginnings of sampling, for example, the beginnings of a lot of different techniques of recording. If you think of even back to, I don't know, epic recording, like Frankie Goes to Hollywood or someone like that, if you think of the incredibly grand scale of some of those records with orchestras and huge sounds, and, you know, like, they were amazing sounding records. And so that's what really inspired me a lot in music, which sounds weird. Here we are sitting in a pub and I'm playing 80 songs on an acoustic guitar, but it does have a relevance, I think, because that music meant a lot to me then. And even though the examples I used are not exactly stuff I play now, but it's stuff that was formative in a lot of the way of music I listened to at the time, and also how I listen to music itself, because I love music for the songs, but I also love listening to the production and how a song is recorded,
the sound itself.
The sound itself, and the way music can tell pictures, can tell stories. And I love the light and shade. I love, like, you know, I don't know, the songs that they'll have, the really sparse, bare intro of literally just a vocal over drums, and it builds and becomes something, and then it'll just go off on a complete tangent to the middle age, and then you come back again to the chorus, and, you know, the whole, so it becomes it's like a journey, and I love. That's the thing I like about, well, the music I like is music that has a visual, or has a story to it, or the feeling of a story.
Wow. So to fast forward a little bit, when did you come to London, and when did you start performing the way you do now?
I came to London at the end of 1987. I worked as a film and video editor in Australia, but I was like a kind of junior editor. But I basically I worked at a TV company, and they basically had a library of literally every music video that was made.
Wow.
And I really wanted to make music videos. So I grew up, you know, that was for me then, we're talking the mid-80s, you know, all the videos of, again, like The Cure, but even the videos themselves of, like, Frankie Goes to Hollywood or Duran Duran or whatever, even though, of course, it was pop music of the day, or even the Human League, or all kinds of bands like that. But they were actually really experimenting, not with music, and just as I was saying about the way it's recorded, but also music videos themselves were in their ascendancy. And they so basically I just thought, wow, that's what I really want to do. So I bought a plane ticket, and it was like, I honestly say, I arrived in London with a backpack and a dream.
Wow.
And trying to not make a long story to your question, I'm talking a lot, aren't I? But before I left Australia, at the beginning of every music video, it's not what you see on TV, but it has like an ident, it has a countdown clock, and it has the name of the artist and the song and the record company and all that kind of, you know, when it was recorded or whatever. On every single one of those countdown clocks, it actually has the name and address of the production company that made it.
Right.
So, of course, we're talking well and truly pre-internet days. So basically, I wrote down the addresses of all the companies that made all the videos I really liked, and before I left Australia, I sent them all my CV, and basically said and said, I'm coming to London. This is what I do. So you know who I am when I knock on your door.
And did you land anything?
And this is what it was, an amazing thing happened. So I basically arrived in London and went around the first week, knocked on the door of every single company that I'd written a letter to. This is how sometimes things happen in life. Amazingly, I went to one company. They really liked my work. I mean, it wasn't great work, but they could see that I was really motivated, keen, and whatever. This woman said, look, I really like your work, but we haven't really got a job here. It transpires the very next day she had lunch with the manager of another post-production company. He said to her over their lunch, one of my editors is leaving, he's going to Australia. And she said, well, that's weird. I just met this guy yesterday from Australia who I think could really be good. And the guy who's the manager of the company rang me up that afternoon and he said, I've just had lunch with such and such. She tells me you're looking for a job and she says she thinks you're good. Can I offer you a job? He basically said, can you come and see me tomorrow afternoon? I think I've got a job for you. And it turns out that place, it was called Carlton Television in St John's Wood, and basically it was the place where people like Godley and Cream, like they even shot like Girls on Film, that music video, in the studio at that place. They people like Godley and Cream, Andy Morahan, who did a lot of like all of George Michael's videos, or a lot of big videos in this country. Russell Mulcahy, who was an amazing director of the 80s. Tim Pope, who did all the Cure videos. They all worked there. So it's like one of these things of, mind you, I'm not saying for 1 minute I started working with those kind of people. I want to make that completely clear. I was the junior, I was like the dog's body, I got all the worst jobs, and the jobs, but I was in the right place.
You really
to
were.
And it's like, the adage that the door slightly opened, and so I kept my foot in that door and made sure that it wasn't going to close on me. And I'll be honest, I worked my guts out. I worked so hard. But I mean, what evolved from that is the people network, that a lot of which I've still got today, like almost 30 years later. And like in many industries, the film and video industry is every bit as much who you know as what you know. It's so important, the people network.
That might be the most amazing story of how someone came to London.
That
was a fantastic twist of fate.
And it was exactly. It was a complete turn of fate, and just as I said, I came here prepared to work in a pub or wash dishes or whatever it might take, and I had a dream. My dream was that it might happen, and not that within, I literally, that was 2 weeks after I arrived, I said, oh, well, listen, I said, I haven't even got a place properly to live yet. I was living in like a, what they'd call these days, like a backpackers hostel, where there's literally 6 people in one room on bunk beds. I said, I've got to at least try and find somewhere to live. And but that was the start. It was very incredibly lucky, and I'm always, to this day, I don't take any of it for granted. I really acknowledge that it was just, and all the people who helped me in those days, I still am indebted to them.
I'm afraid I have to call it one there.
Of course.
Where can people find you online?
Well, I have my website, which is my main thing, which is www.warrenmeneely.com, and that's got all of my work, my history, and all of that. But see, though that's completely about filmmaking, it's not anything to do with playing live music and whatever. I've used far too much of your time, Roy.
But we didn't even is there anywhere online where people can find out?
No, see, I don't, because I just do. For me, it's all about playing live. I just love the experience of playing live, and I love, like, playing here at the King's Head every single night is completely different. And for me, it's the buzz of just getting up and playing. And I'll always try something different. I'm not every week, but I often try different things, not just acoustic guitar, as you know, Roy. I've got get the electric guitar, I get the drum machine, I get the samples, I get the looper. But still within a similar kind of genre. But it's almost like you could almost call it a. There's a masochistic streak in me that says, all right, let's try something now. And it's like I almost make myself the fear of doing something so new, but in front of people. And the fact is, if it works, it's an amazing feeling. And for me, I love the feedback of just, it's not all about self-glory, but you know what I mean?
No.
For me, the buzz of playing is just having, just even a few people, even just giving you a bit of a clap, or especially if someone says, oh, I really like that version of that song. For me, that's what I'm much more into than recording music and doing things, getting all stuff online and whatever. Which is probably very different to a lot of your other performers, I acknowledge that, but we all do it for different reasons.
Exactly. Warren, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Definitely to be continued.
Yeah, thank you.
And
very
here's
much.
to another great performance tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And that was that. Thank you very much, Warren, for your time. You couldn't make it up. The tenacity, and again, similar to Theo, the courage to bet on yourself and to recognize this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to do it. I cannot salute that enough. That is an incredible story, and you can really hear the passion that he has for what he does in how he talks about it. So thank you endlessly, Warren, for your time, and it was another great performance last night as well. I suppose I should mention on these episodes that I do have a show coming up on Tuesday, the 30th of July at Road Trip and the Workshop. The roster for that, the lineup of that show is made up of other performers from the open mic nights. They are Afia Lorraine, Jack Mann, and the one, the only Hayley Solis. I didn't forget. It's very early. I've got to rush to work soon. So you can find me online. Just search for the word Saddest Night Out, all as one word. I'll put a link to Warren's website in the blurb for this episode as well. Thanks again, Warren. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.